Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. We're here to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. Have you heard about the PACT Act? Today, our guest is Attorney Colonel Karen Pike, United States Army retired, and we're talking about the PACT Act, which is a new law that was just passed by the federal government to help veterans get the benefits that they need. So this is a service-connected disability focus today. And so I wanted to give the audience some background on what that really means and how it might be different from non-service connected. So tell us, Karen, in your own words, what is a service-connected disability?
A service-connected disability is any medical condition or injury that impedes the soldier's ability to function in society and obtain gainful employment. Mm-hmm. So when this was initially envisioned back in 1948, we were looking at a lot of blue-collar jobs, a lot of manual labor. So the CFR, the Code for Federal Regulation, focuses a lot on physical limitations.
Okay.
But it's really looking at how do those medical conditions impact your ability to earn a living.
To work.
And work.
And so part of that determination is a rating system about, I guess, how disabled are you?
It is. Basically, they've taken your ability to obtain gainful employment, and if you are fully able, you're 100%. And they've developed a system that decreases your ability by 10% for each rating. And there's an algebraic equation that doesn't kind of look good on radio. Mm-hmm. But there's a method for them to determine how to calculate that, because you can have 10 conditions at 10% and it's not going to add up to 100 because of the algebra.
Okay.
I like to call it pumpkin pie math or pizza pie math because, when I draw the picture for a veteran I'm helping, I use that division and take a slice of pizza off.
I see.
It makes it easy because, we're always hungry. And so if I take your pizza away, you understand what I did.
Yeah, then you're totally disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you're proving that a soldier has been disabled because of something that happened during service for the military, the VA talks about a Nexus Connection. Can you explain what that is so that our listeners that might not be in the military understand?
Yes, the Nexus, it means that something that occurred during your military service is what caused the particular medical condition that's limiting you from being fully employed. So, for instance, if you had a genetic issue, maybe you had a bone spur or something that didn't prevent you from coming in the military, but now has caused you pain later in life after retirement or after separation from the military, that in and of itself is not military connected. That's a God-given defect. We all have them. None of us is perfect. And that is not related to your service. But if you go into the service and you are a aircraft mechanic and you fall off of a ladder and you break your back, that is going to be service connected because that was you got injured in the performance of your military duties. That same service member could have fallen off a ladder at his home on the military base. He's still going to get service connected because he's living on the military base because of his military service. He'd be living in that local community because of his military service. So again, that's all connected to how and why did you get that injury. If you
some others might be the paratroopers jumping out of airplanes.
Paratroopers jumping out of airplanes get a lot of physical injuries. They break things all the time. There's also the hidden injuries they can get, because head injuries and concussions can cause long-term residuals. So there's a lot of things like that. And then, of course, hearing. And I was going to talk about invisible injuries, because hearing we can't see. The only way you see that is when, the veteran, or in some cases family members, say, what did you say? I can't hear you. Well, that's because we got a lot of exposure to weapons, aircraft. Combat is not a quiet. It's not like a PlayStation where I can turn the volume down. It's whatever volume it's going to be.
Yeah.
So those can impact our hearing. And then there's toxic exposures.
We'll get into
which
that,
we'll get into.
Because that's why one of the major reasons that this new law was passed to help veterans who were exposed to toxic substances. I forgot to say what God's word was coming back from the break, so I'll say that now. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4, there's a verse that says, "For the Lord your God is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you." Amen. Okay, so if somebody isn't injured during their time of service, but they are a veteran who was honorably discharged, they still might get benefits later on, but instead of disability compensation, they might call it non-service-connected pension.
They could. A lot of the injuries may still be service-connected because the symptoms don't always show up right away. For instance, if you break your leg, it may go the entire career and it doesn't cause you any pain. But later, when you're getting a little older in life, you may develop arthritis pain. So that would be a service-connected arthritis that would be rated. But veterans who don't develop any medical conditions are still going to age. They're still going to need some support. And if they did not retire from the military, they're not going to have a military pension. So the VA has a provision for individuals who don't have a service-connected medical condition to receive that non-service-connected pension. And every veteran that was honorably discharged is eligible to apply for that. And it is not necessarily as big as a disability pension, but it is there to help them in their retirement as they go through life.
The catch is that they base it also on your income and your assets.
Yes, the millionaire is probably not going to get nearly as much as the veteran who's living on food stamps or a small retirement from a civilian company.
And survivors can get benefits too, like a spouse or dependent child or child with disabilities. So you mentioned that you helped your father one time. That was during his life, but your mom might have qualified for something too.
She did. When my dad passed in 2005, he died from an Agent Orange related medical condition and complications with that. And so we applied for the death and indemnity compensation because my mom is eligible for that compensation because of the service-connected condition causing my dad's death. We didn't win on our first application, but we did after 2 more efforts and more medical information provided to the VA. So now she receives a VA check that is about the same amount as what my dad would have received had he been with us. And she receives his retirement, the portion of his retirement that she gets as survivor's benefits.
So I guess the public policy behind that is to compensate the family, him and his dependent spouse, because his life was cut short.
Yes.
Because of that condition.
Without that condition, we would have expected him to live much longer. But he developed medical conditions at a very young age in his 40s as a result of Agent Orange exposure. So
and we'll talk more about that too, because in the PACT Act, there are some additional presumptions that they're going to make for Vietnam veterans.
Yes, they've added, I want to say, almost 10 new locations for presumptive service connection on exposures.
Yeah, so you'll want to stay tuned throughout the show for that. We're going to talk about the specifics probably near the second half. But what I want to say now is a shout out to our sponsors, Veterans Medical Assistance Group and Veterans Information Services. First, Veterans Medical Assistance Group, VMAG, they provide professional assistance to help veterans understand their Veterans Affairs disability ratings, their benefits, the current medical situation that impacts both service-connected disabilities and service-connected conditions that may have been aggravated by existing service situations. If you want to reach out to VMAG, you can call 210-405-6252, 210-405-6252. Also, I want to give a shout out to Veterans Information Services. It's a resource for attorneys and agents accredited to file claims and appeals before the United States Board of Appeals for Veterans Appeals. The Veterans Information Services include software, continuing legal education, a dynamic listserv which averages over 300 professional members, and an archive site to access all previous listserv questions, answers, general counsel opinions, Board of Veterans Appeals opinions, and other judicial opinions. If you're an attorney or accredited agent interested in that, call Jay McIntyre at 770-591-0260. I've been a subscriber to Veterans Information Services for over 10 years, and I like it. Okay, we talked about service-connected disability compensation, non-service-connected pension. We talked about some survivors' benefits. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the PACT Act. And what I read was the PACT Act is perhaps the largest healthcare and benefit expansion in VA history. And the full name of the law is Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act. So I had to look it up.
Yes.
I wanted to find out, who is Heath Robinson? Well, he was a decorated combat medic who died from a rare form of lung cancer. And so I had to look that up to find out really what it was. I read that it was a rare autoimmune disease called mucous membrane pemphigoid, and it developed into stage 4 lung cancer. So you did deal with all of these complicated medical terminology. So that's probably something you just learned on the job.
Yes.
How to say these long words.
I did. Way back when I first started as a medical legal advisor, I took a anatomy and physiology class for lawyers.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they even still offer that, but they did at that time. Way back, like I said, I've almost 30 years in the military, so this was way back then. And it was really helpful to be able to learn the language, because then I can talk to the doctors without saying, could you translate that into kindergarten English?
Right.
But now I get to be the translator and translate for the veteran.
Veterans have to learn these concepts so that they can understand what they're going through, and so that they can help to convince the VA to grant them benefits in some situations.
And it's easier when they know in plain English what's causing their limitation. So
we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the specifics of the PACT Act, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. Stay with us.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.